Hello everyone, I'm forecaster Jack Sillin here with the tropical weather discussion video for Monday, August 3rd, 2020. Over the past week or week and a half or so, we've been exhaustively discussing this tropical storm and Hurricane Isaias. It's currently moving northeast, about east of Jacksonville, Florida. There's not really much more I have to say about the storm other than the thoughts that I've outlined on the blog and on Twitter. Really, this storm is going to be moving onshore tonight near the North Carolina-South Carolina border. It's going to bring some storm surge to that part of the coastline. Strong winds expected east of the center, and very heavy rain expected to the west of the center. If you're in the path of the storm, hopefully you're aware of the latest forecast information, both provided by myself and the National Hurricane Center and your local National Weather Service forecast offices. Hopefully you're in the process of preparing for the storm, especially if you're down here right along the North Carolina-South Carolina coastline. That's where the surge impacts, the wind impacts are really going to be strongest, and then points farther north and west related to the flash flood threat. This video is not going to discuss the forecast for Isaias in any more detail. Again, you can read back on the blogs and stuff that I've posted, especially yesterday's, which took a more detailed look at the impacts as the storm is going to work its way up the coastline. So this is going to be a sort of post-Isaias look at the tropical Atlantic. What's next in the pipeline? What are we watching for over the next week or so in the tropical Atlantic? The next feature to keep an eye on is this little cluster of showers and thunderstorms here northeast of Puerto Rico. This is known as Invest 94L by the Hurricane Center. They're giving it about a 60% chance of developing into a tropical depression as it moves northwest and then recurves off to the north and northeast, just to the west of Bermuda. A little hint you can get here that the storm might struggle is this convection off to its west. You notice that there's a little bit of counterclockwise motion associated with those updrafts, and really their existence here in this speckled pattern with the relatively warm cloud tops is a hint that there's an upper level low in this area. And we can see that more easily if we switch over to water vapor satellite imagery. That'll really pop out here, this upper level low spinning to the west of the system. And remember, upper level lows are not conducive for tropical cyclone development. There's a southwesterly shear that's going to be imparted on the system by this. There's also a little bit of southeasterly shear lurking off to the east of the system over here. And then there's this dry air out in front of it. So the environment around 94L will be marginally conducive for development over the next couple of days as it sort of shoots the gap between this southeasterly shear and this southwesterly shear. Really not expecting this to turn into much of anything. We could see it named as a tropical depression or storm briefly here as it moves off to the northwest. But as I joked on Twitter last night, this one's sponsored by the Greek alphabet. There's no impacts. Unless you happen to be traversing the ocean waters here, you might run into a few squalls in the shipping lanes. But really, this is a no-impact storm. It's going to miss Bermuda. It's going to miss the East Coast. Nothing to worry about. On model forecast guidance, we can see this is the little area of spin. This is the low-level spin map, so to speak, 850 millibar vorticity. You can see that little area of spin. It starts out relatively broad this morning. It tightens up this afternoon, evening, into tomorrow. Tomorrow is probably its best shot at becoming a tropical cyclone, if that were to occur. And then it sort of fades out on Wednesday as it runs into this ridge in the low levels. And then in the mid levels, the southwesterly flow out ahead of the cold front steering Isaias up to the north is going to take its mid-level moisture. This is the mid-level moisture plume associated with the system on Wednesday afternoon. Note it's located north of Bermuda. And then the low-level spin is all the way down here to the southeast of Bermuda. So this thing is really going to get ripped apart by the wind shear on Wednesday, unless it doesn't really have a chance to cause any problems. Moving into the later part of the week, you see this sort of pool of dry air. It comes down out of Canada. This is another one of these anticyclonic wave-breaking events. That's what produced the potential vorticity streamer we saw bringing dry air and shear to Isaias as it was moving through the Bahamas. But this one is not going to have a chance to really impact any tropical cyclones. The one thing I do have to say about it, though, is that sometimes on the sort of southern side of these potential vorticity streamers, you get these little pockets to spin up, and then those can sometimes produce tropical cyclones. So again, if that were to occur, it would be another sponsored by the Greek alphabet, just burning through another name in the book here. Really no impacts to land. Moving deeper into the tropical Atlantic, here's, of course, Isaias. I realize I've been pronouncing that wrong for most of the rest of this video. It's pronounced Isaias. But anyways, it's moving north up the east coast here. Here's 94L. And then deeper into the tropics, we have basically nothing happening, which is really nice. So this is the next wave that's moving off here. I guess this is this afternoon, moving off of Africa. It is going to be stuffed full of dry air from the north here, so not expecting any development associated with that. You can see that these waves move off and they get really... they suffocate in this dry air mass off to the north. And you can see that dry air mass associated with the potential vorticity streamer, that anticyclonic wave breaking event that we were talking about earlier. That's really going to be the name of the game in the tropical Atlantic for the next week or so. And we can trace that back to this map right here. Remember, this is what we use to determine periods of roughly more or less favorable conditions for tropical cyclone development. Right here is the tail end of the favorable period for development that brought us Gonzalo, Hannah, and Isaias. And it's on its way out. So over the next couple days, this is going to move off into Africa. It's going to energize the tropical waves a little bit, but really nothing impactful expected to develop because we have this suppressed phase of the Kelvin wave circulation. It's moving in from the Eastern Pacific. It's basically going to put a damper on tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic while it's here. It's really, unfortunately, not going to last very long. You see we have maybe a week or so here of time when the this prevailing environment, I guess is the best way to describe it, is unfavorable for development. And then after that, we have this this relatively strong Kelvin wave signal beginning in roughly a week's time. On the 10th of August, you can see it starts to develop here, roughly 90 to 100 west, and then it's going to slowly drift east. You see another one of these circulations developing over Africa. So this is really going to give the wave train a boost, and then this is going to allow the more favorable conditions for those waves to develop. One caveat is that this location is this Kelvin wave right here is a little bit too far west for optimal Atlantic tropical cyclone production. So perhaps this is actually going to favor more activity in the Eastern Pacific, in which case the increased shear over the Atlantic would tend to favor a little bit of a prolonged quiet period moving through the middle of August. But then if we take a look at the weekly, EPS weeklies here, we always want to go to the mean. That circulation here, which is what we were seeing the 10th to 15th of August over roughly 90 west, is then going to move east into the Atlantic. And then by the time we get into the third week of August, 21st and on, you see that this is the most favorable region for the most favorable pattern slash signal for tropical cyclone development is right when you're between this this active phase, which generates these very strong waves, and then that gap between the active phase and the suppressed phase is where you see less shear, and that's where these waves can come off and then develop. So it's not quite clear to me exactly how long our upcoming respite will last in the Atlantic. It might be just a week here, and then we see this pulse move in a little bit faster. It might last until perhaps the third week of August. But unfortunately, moving into peak season, this is about as favorable configuration as you can find for Atlantic tropical cyclone activity. So we should have plenty to keep an eye on, especially heading into late August, early September. Of course, that's the climatological peak of the season as well, so we would expect to see more activity then. The final caveat I'll add to all of this is that this is really just this isn't you're not allowed to have tropical cyclones and then you're going to have a million tropical cyclones, these suppressed and active phases. This just means that the odds are tipped more, or towards or away tropical cyclone development. So if we get an old cold front to sort of wash out in the Gulf of Mexico, like we're almost seeing here in the sort of next weekend, right? This little washed out circulation, nothing well defined. But if you can get a thunderstorm complex to develop along that and sit and fester over these very warm waters for a few days, you have yourself a tropical cyclone, regardless of what this intraseasonal sort of favorable or unfavorable pulse is telling you. So this is actually how we saw Gonzalo develop. Gonzalo arguably in the unfavorable spot, but the thunderstorm activity just happened to align itself favorably for that little cyclone to develop briefly here east of the Antilles. So again, no promises of complete silence from the Atlantic, but we should at least see activity quiet down a little bit in the weeks to come. All right, that's it from me for now. Thanks so much for watching. You, of course, can find the latest info on Isaias on the blog, on Twitter, of course, from the National Weather Service Forecast Office and the National Hurricane Center being the official sources of information for that system. I'll be back next week with another look at what to expect from the tropical Atlantic. Thanks for watching.